What is going on, guys? Thank you for entering the chamber once again. Today, we're going to be talking about the Order symbol in the upcoming Attack on Titan set Battle for Humanity. I'm really excited about this. Order is a symbol I've always enjoyed playing with, even though for most of UniVersus and My Hero Academia's competitive scene, it's never really been that powerful of a symbol. It's had a couple of occasional powerful decks here and there on Order, but it was never really like a symbol you could just, jam whatever character you wanted to be comfortable with. But I think we're seeing some really neat stuff with Order and Attack on Titan that has me very excited to play with it. And we're going to highlight that by talking about a new character coming out in Attack on Titan. And that would be none other than Erwin Smith himself, the 13th commander of the Survey Corps. Now, Erwin is a chunky boy with a 7-hander with 23 health, is pretty sturdy. His character card's not that crazy on its face, but we've seen plus or minus 2 speed be effective in the past, and even characters that have to destroy foundations for it have had some competitive viability. People who've been playing the game for a while will remember Momo 1. I don't think this guy is as good as Momo 1, but I think he's really neat. His main gimmick is that whenever you sacrifice a foundation or one of your attacks deals damage, you get a wall counter. And wall counters just kind of represent like in the show Attack on Titan, they're like the main defenses humanity has against the Titans. So I guess you could think of it as like people's like faith or confidence in the wall. So it's very aesthetically appropriate, very on theme. Anyways, he takes these wall counters and then he can turn 3 of them into a brand new foundation that's ready to go, which helps pay for his own abilities. And notably, if you sack a foundation to pay for his card, that gets you a counter. And then if you pump a speed on that attack with it and that attack hits, that gets you a second counter. So you really only net -1. I know 3 counters for a foundation looks like kind of a lot, but I think in execution, this guy is going to have plenty of counters to go around with, especially when he starts making like multiple strings or sacrificing a few foundations on a turn. I think his stage is going to end up being very fluid. Now, is this going to be the best character in the set? No, probably not. But I think he really highlights how neat wall counters can be, and it gives Order a new identity beyond just committing stuff. And I'm really excited to share with you guys some of the other upcoming Order cards that have more to do with wall counters. Speaking of, let's get into that first one right now, which is Commander's Rage, which is a 6 difficulty, 6 mid for 6. If you have 6 or more, this attack is a powerful 4 attack, and you can burn a counter to give it 4 damage, basically. So in Order decks, this is like a 6 mid 10 bomb. Very high stats. It's a little boring of a move, but it's a nice payoff if you're playing with these wall counter cards. Now, this card I think is boring, but if we want to talk about a wall counter card that I think is going to see actually a pretty healthy amount of play in at least these wall counter decks, that's going to bring us to the next card we're going to talk about, Wall Maria's Might. This is a secret rare coming up in the new set, and it's a pretty straightforward secret rare, but I think it's actually really good. So when you play it, you get a free wall counter, and then you get to draw a card for every 2 wall counters that you have on a card. Most of the time, you're going to look at your character for that. So this card doesn't have an upper limit, so it might draw you a fresh 5, 6, 7 cards. If we can find a good discard outlet with Order 2, or this is an attune card, you could pair it with like, whatever your other symbol is for a discard outlet, and you can make some really nasty stuff happen. Draw 4, 5, 6 cards, and it also lets you kind of cobble together a lethal hand out of nowhere. The only issue with this card is that you need a lot of wall counters on something, probably your character, for it to be efficient, which means out the gate this card's a little boring. So it's going to be tough to play a ton of copies of it, but I think it's like a great 2 or 3 of for any of these wall counter decks as a payoff for when they've built up like a bunch of walls. And then it also has a nice upset where if you block with it, you just get to draw a card, which is always nice. And it's reasonably statted as a 5 low for 5. All in all, I think this is like a pretty decent secret rare, and it's a very targeted payoff for playing with these wall counters, and I'm very excited to experiment with this card. Speaking of payoffs for playing with wall counters, that brings us to the main foundation I want to talk about, or one of 2 today, and that's Fortify Walls, which is another really good Order payoff for these like wall counters matters decks. So on its own, it's a kind of a boring card where all it does is get a wall counter every turn, and then as an enhance, you can move those counters to somewhere else, which isn't super impressive unless your character plays with those wall counters. Like if you're playing with Erwin or another character who cares about wall counters, this card is going to farm you value. And as a bonus upside, if you're in a pinch, you can flip it and burn all of your wall counters and reduce it in attack speed equal to the number of counters that you burn. So this is a nice way for you to just kind of like incrementally like either add wall counters to your character or build up a big bank in case you need like a big piece of speed reduction. All in all, I think this is going to be like a 4-0 staple again in these wall counters decks. Man, and also the card looks great. It's a ultra rare foundation. There's not too many of those. I think like the kind of white background for the stone with the order like paint scheme looks great. I'm really excited to play with this and play with it in Irwin as a 4-of. Okay, moving right along, we're going to talk about an action now, which is Raise Walls. It's a very boring card as a 0 difficulty action that you can play to generate a wall counter and draw a card. Or if you block with it, you can rob an attack's shift keyword so it won't flip over and then draw a card either way. This isn't like a super flashy or impressive card, but it makes your decks more consistent because it's basically a free cantrip. As we talked about earlier with Irwin as an example, when Irwin sacks a foundation for his attack, if he sacks a foundation and then hits you, he gets 2 counters. So that's 2/3 of the way to replacing the cost of the character. Raise Walls gives you that last counter back, so the 1 counter you get from Raise Walls is actually pretty significant. And then defensively, being able to have a block that draws you a card is nice. It's just always nice. And the fact that it can also randomly deny shift can be like a game-winning ability because we're seeing these really powerful backup cards, or I should say backup attacks, where they turn into backups after they're resolved. Being able to like put a stop to that and say that no, your Colossus Titan appears is just the attack. You don't get the big like 10 health foundation afterwards, or I'm sorry, 10 stamina backup afterwards. Like it could be game winning. So this is a very unassuming action, but I think it's going to see actually quite a bit of play, especially again in these wall counter focused decks. All right, for the last order card I want to talk about today, it's going to be the Ambition of Irwin Smith. So this is kind of a weird foundation because the form where you can destroy it to commit something isn't, I mean, it's fine. Like spot commit can absolutely win you a game, but that's not really why we're going to be playing this. What we want this card for is the death response, where after we sacrifice a foundation, we get to draw a card once per turn. Now granted, this card is unique, so we can't have a lot of them out. But if you're playing with a character like Irwin, it's pretty conceivable that you're going to be sacrificing a foundation every turn, which means this card is just like free card advantage, both on your turn and your opponent's turn, pretty much completely resolving your need for card draw between that and the Wall Maria secret rare. The only struggle I see here is there's actually so much card draw here on order with this new foundation, and the other cards we talked about today, on top of just like, you know, cards like Vile Seasoning and even like Shards of Winter is seeing a little bit of play. Order decks are going to need to find some kind of way to discard these cards as like an outlet to keep up. They need like some kind of like way to burn these off. So if someone finds a good discard outlet, and like this could be actually like a pretty scary symbol, I think. Now, we have one last card to talk about, and this is a special one. I'm very excited to get to reveal for the first time. No one's seen it before. It's a brand new ultra rare, and it comes right out the anime. We're going to let a little clip run, and I'm going to share it with you. You ready?
I don't have time for this nonsense. I'm a busy man. My flock has been devastated. I demand restitution. Do you know who I am? Let me down from here this instant.
If that's what you want. Will straight down do the trick?
All right, check this card out. Intimidating Command. This is a brand new one. It's a 7 difficulty, 7 low 7, so it's pretty beefy, but it has a pretty interesting blitz ability that when you play it, you commit all 2 difficulty foundations, not just your opponent's, both yours and theirs. It locks out the entire board, all 2 difficulties. You almost want to check a 3 on this card so you can just commit all of your 2s and get that 3 check out of the way anyways. It's kind of interesting. And then it also has kind of a neat deadlock where basically your opponent can't block with +1 block modifiers, which locks them out of blocking with some attacks, which is sometimes useful. I think this is going to be a really interesting card to see play if we see some kind of like commit down focused like order control deck, or if we have payoffs for like your opponent having their whole board committed out or large parts of their board committed out. Committing your own foundations kind of sucks too, and it's going to be tough to play around. But, you know, and nothing else, you're going to have to commit a couple of those 2s just to pass the check, because it is a 7 difficulty card. And if you have a lot of 2s, you could even play it like a little deeper into a string to try to like, you know, mitigate that cost. All in all, I think this is like a really neat ultra rare, and I want to give a huge thanks out to UVS Games for letting me show this to you guys. Real excited to be the first one to preview this brand new ultra rare. On that note, that's going to wrap us up. I'm really excited for these new upcoming like wall counters cards. I've just actually finished watching the first season of Attack on Titan. I've marathoned the whole season in about 3 days to kind of get ready for this new set. Honestly, can't believe I've slept on the show for as long as I have. It's been a wild ride. I cannot wait to watch the other seasons. And I'm really excited to get to play with these new strategies and these new cards, especially after having just seen like a really incredible show. I'm actually going to be heading off to Gen Con to help demo this new set, and I am over the moon for both these cards and the future seasons of the show that I haven't watched yet. That's all we got for this one, guys. So if you made it this far, please consider liking, subscribing, and let me know what you think about this strategy down in the comments below. Once again, thank you for entering the chamber, and I'm going to see you in the next one. Bye, guys.